I invite to the floor Colonel Andriy Lysenko, who is the spokesperson for the anti-terrorist operation, and he'll tell us about the latest news from the anti-terrorist operation zone and about the situation on the border and in residential centers. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Ukraine is meeting its heroes who were freed from the enemy captivity yesterday in evening in the framework of the peace process in the east of Ukraine on the delineation boundary in Donetsk region. The Ukrainian special services have freed from the enemy captivity 146 Ukrainian warriors. These are military servicemen from different units of armed forces, National Guards, Battalion Mirotvorets, Peacemaker, Battalion Donbass, other voluntary battalions, and several volunteers who were helping the military. They were in captivity for several weeks to several months. Their full list is on the site of the Security Service of Ukraine. And today, early in the morning, on the Vasilkiv military airfield, the President of Ukraine, Poroshenko, met the plane of the Ukrainian Air Force with the people who are Ukrainian, who were freed. Another piece of Ukrainian land was liberated from Russian occupants. Yesterday, the Russian border guards left their positions in Kherson region on the Chongar Peninsula and retreated towards beyond the administrative boundary of Kherson region with the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, and the State Border Service of Ukraine took this piece of land under protection. Within the negotiation process, the terrorists are engaged in unconstructive behavior. They are protracting the talks and they perform provocations. And against this background, the units of terrorists are replenished. They stockpile weapons and machinery, and there is also the work on infrastructure, and field hospitals are being set up. Also, ammunition and arms are going into the territory of Ukraine from the Russian Federation, and there are some attempts at armed provocations against the Ukrainian military in Donetsk and Luhansk regions. However, they did not use heavy armaments. Over the last 24 hours, 3 Ukrainian military persons got wounded, and there are no killed. Again, drones were used for reconnaissance purposes next to Mariupol, and the leader of the terrorist organization DNR, Zakharchenko, signed a decree about the creation of the Donetsk News Agency, DNA, and an analogous structure under the title Luhansk News Agency was created by the gunmen of LNR. They are under the patronage of one of the internet portals that is working on the territory of the annexed Crimea, and this portal is spreading false anti-Ukrainian chauvinistic propaganda. On the instruction of the President of Ukraine, the state enterprise Mykolaiv armored machinery plant has restored its work, and they have developed a new armored vehicles ambulances called St. Nicholas. The entire Ukraine is helping the liberated territories of Donbass. Yesterday, on the cross point next to Makarova, a humanitarian cargo from the Ukrainian branch of the international organization Red Cross was documented. 7 lorries have carried 25 tons of foodstuffs, hygienic products, and everyday utensils for residents of Luhansk region. Yesterday, the military from the Armed Forces of Ukraine have also brought to settlement Olkhovatka in Donetsk region sweets, pasta, preserves, and condensed milk that the military have gathered. Children and lone women unmarried women have got this help. Yesterday, the servicemen of the counterintelligence of Ukrainian Security Service got from volunteers the military type UAZ car. The car was donated by a private entrepreneur from Poltava region, and the volunteers have repaired the car, taking into account the specifics of using it as a combat machine for the needs of counterintelligence servicemen in anti-terrorist operation zone. Yesterday, all the railway communication was cancelled that was going to the occupied territory, and the Ukrzaliznytsia railway administration said that it is because of security considerations, but what was dangerous was not said. So what do you say? Is it dangerous for our citizens to go to the occupied territory, or the danger emanates from the occupied territory? How, and second question, how Ukraine and the Council of Defense and Security plan to provide for the safety of people who are still in Crimea and can be persecuted by the Federal Security Service of Russia? Okay, the answer is all the movement connected to all the movement from and to the territory of Ukraine to the territory controlled by the gunmen, we raise the security measures there because there is a huge probability of subversive groups going into government-controlled Ukrainian territory, and the scope of subversive and intelligence actions against Ukraine is now very high. So that's why we also use additional measures and temporarily suspend communication by transport from the occupied territory to the territory controlled by the Ukrainian authorities. This is a temporary measure, so the local population are being instructed about the real state of things so that people understand the situation, because now there's a huge danger, especially in the regime that we are now. You see that subversive actions are taking place almost every day in different places of Ukraine. You read about them. You read this in the reports by our law enforcers. We ask everybody to treat this action with a understanding, because the issue of safety of our citizens is issue number one. And of course, as far as our citizens who are on the territory controlled by the gunmen, including the occupied Crimea. We so far cannot provide for their safety and security. We've done everything possible so that they could leave those places. You know that more than 500,000 people have moved from the occupied territories to the territory of Ukraine, and they are being provided with residences and everything necessary for their everyday life. So for those who are still there, we can only gather humanitarian cargo and loads and transfer and distribute among them. However, this is also very risky, but everything will be done so that we free those, liberate those territories, and we insist that they adhere to the demands and decisions that were in the Minsk agreement, and that's why we are working first of all in order to return our guys who are still in captivity, and as soon as we manage to stop the firing after the 2 control days when there are no provocations and firing and shelling, we start to withdraw heavy arms and fulfill other points that are provided for by the Minsk agreement. So our people who are still on the territories controlled by the gunmen, if they do not want to leave those territories and go to the territory controlled by Ukrainian state, they will have to be under this danger for some time. But we will be doing everything in order to return those territories as soon as possible under the control of the Ukrainian authorities. After yesterday's exchange, how many civilians and military people are still in the captivity? Out of the agreed number 150, 146 are already at home, and another 4 will be freed in the nearest hours and will come here as well. The Security Service of Ukraine controls the process, and the President personally controls this process, and we know that there are still hostages from among peaceful residents, and we are working to release them as well, to secure their release. But earlier we talked about 680 people. The number of hostages can change almost every day because, you know, they can take hostages every day among local residents, and we cannot control them. So the number is rising or falling, but we were able to secure the release of many Ukrainian military who were there. This is already a great victory. The process is ongoing, and we're not going to leave our guys there. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Could you please go into details? At the moment, Ukrainian citizens cannot go out of the leave the territory of the occupied Crimea, and they are endangered there. So do I understand correctly that at the moment there are no mechanisms provided by the state so that they could leave the territory, and at the moment they can be prey at the hands of the occupants? You know, they are being forcibly held there with the use of the military personnel of the Russian Federation. If we will try to secure their release, then we are in an open conflict. We'll hope that there will be an agreement, and those who want to leave the occupied territory of Crimea will finally come to Ukraine. Nobody sits on their hands. You were talking about some firing and shelling. Any details? No, we don't have details because there are no systematic shelling and firing. These are just provocations. Thank you very much. The next briefing is tomorrow at 12:30, and the briefing by Mr. Demchyshin, Minister Demchyshin, is cancelled.